Okay, so I was studying this morning, and one of the things that the Bible says, where Moses is being asked to go lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, right? What am I supposed to say? I am that I am. God says to Moses, I am that I am. And Moses is supposed to go tell the children of Israel, I am that I am. And there are times when that phrase is very comforting to me, and there are times when that phrase is kind of baffling to me. I am that I am. And today I got a glimpse into it that was just different than it has been in the past. And I thought I would share that with you. When we think of praising God, many times we think of God sort of outside of us and we're going to praise him, right? There's this sense that we're praising something that is different from us, that is outside of us, that it's an object sort of outside of our perception, right? That we're praising something. Now, what if God is all, and God is everywhere present, and God is spirit, God is all in all, I am that I am. If that's true, then when we hear the phrase in the Bible, glorify God in your body, what if when we are praising God, we are praising God by virtue of being the highest reflection of God that we can be? What if that is praising God? What if being I am that I am, being the representative of God, is the thing that is praising him? And it's very difficult to put the kind of aha that I had this morning into words, because it's like words it doesn't compute. But if we have the sense that God is all, and that we are made in God's image and likeness, as it says in Genesis 1, the act of praising God, glorifying God in your body, that took on a whole different meaning to me. Now, what is the practical application of that? That sounds good. It's like, okay, I kind of grasp that, I kind of get that, but what does that look like in my daily life? Like, what does it look like to glorify God in my body? Well, I mean, you can talk about your physical image and likeness, like your actual little spacesuit, right? Your little body. You can talk about your body of thought, which we know from metaphysics that our thought becomes our experience, and what we're holding in thought really is our body. That is our body. Our body of thought is our body. So what does it look like to translate I am that I am, praising God, glorifying God in your body, glorifying God within, like the kingdom of heaven is within you, translating all of that into daily practical terms? Like, what does that look like? So I'm actually going to share a little story. I was working at this job for a long time, and I was starting to get really frustrated with the people weren't seeing me. I was like, it was that kind of like, everyone else is the problem. I need to get out of here. It was that kind of level of frustration. And I was really praying about it, because that's just what I do and how I approach stuff. So the thought came to me, well, how can you change, Lisa? What can you do differently? It's not everybody else's problem. If you're thinking this about them and you're thinking negative things about them, that's what's going to be in your experience. So shift your thought and your experience will change. And I was starting to feel kind of imprisoned by this job, like I am sacrificing my life for this company. And when the shift occurred, when I had the healing in my thought, when my shift occurred, what occurred was I was there to serve God. I was there, I was glorifying God in my work, in my body of work, in my way of being, It was my expression of the divine that was really the only thing I was doing. That was my only job. So all of the people I was interacting with became opportunities for healing. All of the little tasks I was doing became moments of praise and glory rather than disgust and frustration and feeling limited by and restricted by. So it was the thing on the outside was governing me. And what shifted was my thought. It became, and I know this seems like a big leap, but it became the expression of I am that I am. It became, I am God's expression. I am the infinite idea of the divine. That is what I'm doing here. That's my whole being, my whole nature. There's nothing else going on. There's nothing outside of me. So when we, kind of going back to the first thing I said, when we think of praising God, and I know that's a little bit of a sort of an older expression, we think of God as outside of us. We've just set ourselves up to be separate from God. We've set ourselves up to say that the stuff on the outside is what's governing my experience. So see how this connects? So when I was at the job, I was saying everything outside of me was governing my horrible experience of work. And my frustration was stemmed from all of those things out, all the people, all the stuff I was frustrated with. When my thought shifted, when I had the healing and my thought shifted to, wait a second, this whole experience is about expressing from the core of my being, which is the divine idea, expressing outwardly. And that is the expression of the divine. That is, I am that I am. I am the manifestation of the divine idea. So everything that God is who I am. Everything that God expresses is what I express. The divine idea is expressed in my being the best and highest version of me that I can be. Now, what happens when that shift occurs is we are free. We are then released from the limitations of everything outside of us, all of the people, the personalities, the circumstances, the limitations, the beliefs, all of that goes away. All of those limitations go away. All of those frustrations go away because we start from the core of our being and we express outwardly. So the whole idea of serving, the whole idea of glorifying God in your body, it's the kingdom of heaven is within you. All of those expressions that we find, and there's so many more that we find in the Bible, all of those expressions are leading to the same idea. I am that I am. I am the expression of the divine. There is nothing else going on here. So anytime something else suggests itself as a reality of other than that, whether it be lack or health or lack of health, lack of finances, lack of connection with other people, lack of relationships, lack of, there's somebody here who's a style expert, lack of style, lack of expression of who you are. Welcome, by the way. And those are the things that are the expression of our getting very, very solid around our true self. Where does who we are come from? Where does the nature of our being come from? What is the core of our being? What is that comprised of? What's the source of it? Well, if the source isn't the creator, and you have separated yourself from the creator, the all that is, and you've let that false sense of ego run away with you, because that is what the ego does. It separates you from source. It bases your life in fear and separation and disconnect, where all of those beliefs run rampant. And your experience becomes a product of that false ego sense of life. It's actually the false ego sense of death, because the false ego doesn't have a sense of life, because it's disconnected from life source. So it really is the view of death, because that's what the ego's path is: separation, fear, anxiety, sin, disease, ultimately death. So if you're operating from that core belief, that becomes your experience slowly but surely. If you're operating from the core understanding, I won't say belief, I will say understanding, that you are the reflection of the divine, that is your true nature, that's who you are, and that's the source of your being. I am that I am. Then life is available to you. All good is available to you. Abundance is available to you. All the ideas that you need to be the manifestation of the divine are available to you when we source our identity in the divine. Because the divine is infinite. The divine is ever present. The divine is all-knowing. The all-knowing, all-loving, all-active, all-wise, eternal. Part of that is a paraphrase from the definition of God from that book I quote all the time, Science and Health. God, the great I am, the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-acting, all-wise, all-loving, and eternal. And then it goes into the 7 synonyms. But just think about that beginning part. All acting, all wise, all loving. Let's just start there. If your life was all acting, if you never had a moment where you felt like you were spinning and not in committed action, if you never had a moment where you were feeling like you didn't really understand or you weren't really wise about your decisions, or if every moment you were in committed action towards good, if every moment you felt wise to make the decisions that you needed to make, if every moment you saw all the opportunities in front of you as opportunities, not as limitations, what if that were your experience? Well, guess what? That's available to us when we understand that the core of our being is sourced in the divine. As soon as we let the ego shift that and shift us away from where the source of life is, we get the ego's version based in belief and limitation and fear, where there's lack, constant conflict, constant, and it's all based in belief, because that's not reality. That's not really what's going on. What's really going on is I am that I am. And our ability to respond to God's ability to glorify God in our body. Well, what does that mean? You can just take that into really practical terms. It means that your body is 100% healthy. It means that your mind is 100% healthy. It means that the energy that you have available to you is 100% available to you. You can never run out of energy. Neither can the world, by the way. Neither can the planet Earth. So we talk a lot about our own experience, but when you get into the level of really expressing and having a desire to serve, which is man's natural desire, you start extending your thought beyond your own experience to others and to the world and to the natural world, sort of nature and the earth and ants, plants and animals and the environment. And you start extending that expression of love to other in service. And what is that ultimately? I'm going to go right back to the beginning. That's praising God. That's praising. And if you don't like the term God, that's okay. Plug in source or universe or love. That's praising and glorifying that love is ever present. It's demonstrating that, which is the coolest thing ever. It's the coolest thing ever. Well, ultimately, I should go back to my little healing. At that job where I had been for a long time and was getting into the more and more restricted and limited thought of things, as soon as my thought shifted, everything changed. Everything at the job looked different, felt different. There were opportunities everywhere. It was like from one day to the next, a completely different experience. And it was solely a shift in my thought. That's where the healing took place. All the other people at work didn't change. All the circumstances at work didn't change. But my way of being in approaching all of that completely shifted. And it was a totally different experience where I actually started really enjoying my job. And I enjoyed going to work. And I didn't feel like it was sucking the life out of me. I actually felt invigorated by going to work after that. I didn't feel like dragged down by it. So what this science, what these metaphysical laws do for us is they change the way we see ourselves and the world, and therefore sometimes completely change our experience so that it becomes a healing experience instead of a destructive experience. And that's pretty awesome. Okay, for those of you who have not joined before, we go into a little bit of silence. So my little phrase to go into that is, let's bring it in, and then we'll come back after a few minutes of silence. Okay, if there's one thing that you can take from today to sort of go off into your day and hold on to, it's the idea that you are God's expression. You are the expression of the divine. It's not separate from you. I am that God is. I am that the divine is. That's who I am. And I'm not separate from, it's not something that I'm worshiping or glorifying or praising that's outside of me. I am seeing the evidence of God expressed in my very being. Think about that and take that away today and go out into your day and feel aligned with, at one with the divine. And just try that on for size. See what that feels like inside of you, that you are at one with the divine, that the divine is being expressed by the very nature of your being. And that's cool. I get excited about this stuff. All right. Thank you for visiting, those of you who are visiting. It's so nice to have you. I hope you come back tomorrow. Lots of love, you guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.